Another day, another deadly explosion in a war where Donald Trump continues to claim both sides want peace. This time, a Russian army officer was killed when a bomb was remotely detonated inside a car as he walked past in a town just east of Moscow. Russian authorities named the officer as Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskalik, a senior-ranking military official, and the Kremlin blamed Ukraine for the attack. The deadly explosion came as President Trump left D.C. to attend the Pope's funeral on Saturday. He's insisted he's putting pressure on both sides and wants a peace deal within the week or the U.S. will walk away. But asked if he'd meet with Ukraine's President Zelenskyy over the weekend, he was non-committal.
It's possible.
How are you, Mr. President?
Meanwhile, in Moscow, Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, was warmly greeted by President Putin for their fourth face-to-face meeting. But will Witkoff criticise Russia's attack on Kyiv the day before that left 12 dead? That's unlikely, though the Kremlin said talks had narrowed their differences for ending the war. But given the US has agreed to recognise the illegally annexed Crimea as part of Russia and allow Moscow to control the land it seized during the war, it's not clear what those differences are.
Well, I think the loss of Crimea is a red line. It should be a red line both for America, both for Ukraine. Also, it shouldn't be recognised by the United States because that would really shatter the way we've understood the international order to be since 1945, that you can't go around annexing territory by force and then being allowed to keep it. So that was the American position since 1940.
But Donald Trump doesn't care about established norms. In fact, he's all about upending them. Hence the aggressive pressure on Zelenskyy, not Putin, to compromise.
I would not be surprised if Russia and Ukraine and America agree to some sort of ceasefire deal before Trump's 100th day, which I think is the pressure point, and that's going to be next week. But that last sort of bit between where we are now and getting over the line is going to be extremely difficult.
Difficult is an understatement. Today, President Zelenskyy joined mourners in Kyiv to pray for the victims, including children, of Thursday's deadly missile strikes. He's insisted Ukraine would never concede territory to Russia, but the world, he said, can impose sanctions and other means of diplomatic pressure to talk about it and discuss territorial issues, but only after a full and unconditional ceasefire. It's now unclear whether Zelenskyy will attend the Pope's funeral tomorrow as planned. Putin won't, but President Trump will be there and will be pushing for a deal.
Well, joining me now from South Carolina is retired US General Ben Hodges, who's a former commander of United States Army Europe. He endorsed the Democrat candidate Kamala Harris in the US elections. Is it looking to you as though there may be some sort of progress in time for the 100 days of the administration?
Not at all, actually. Unfortunately, the approach by the administration has been completely one-sided and based on a faulty appreciation for the actual cause of this conflict or even the history of it. So I think that the administration's approach has been doomed to failure from the start.
When Trump says Crimea will stay with Russia, is that just a sort of a statement of the obvious?
I don't think it's obvious. This is this was and still is sovereign territory of Ukraine. The fact that Russia took it and annexed it illegally back in 2014 does not change the legal status. Now, obviously, the Russians are not just going to walk away from it, but we, the West, have not pressured them to do so. We've not come close to using all the economic tools that we could. And yet, after 11 years of war, Russia still has been unable to defeat Ukraine. They still only hold about 18% of Ukraine. So I would never say in this circumstance that there's no way that Ukraine can ever get Crimea back or that Russia is going to control it forever. I doubt it.
What Trump has sort of said in the last few days is that he doesn't need Ukraine to recognize any of this territory as Russian. But he clearly thinks they should just give it up for the time being and sort of, recognize the status quo. If that is the sort of the way forward for peace talks, does it offer any certainty or security?
Well, there's no certainty with anything with Russia. I don't think there's anything in their history, certainly recent history, that should give anybody hope that they will live up to any agreement unless there is something that will compel them to do that. And this is why the Ukrainians are insisting on a ceasefire, so that Russia could demonstrate that it will be a trustworthy negotiating partner. So without that, I think the Ukrainians know that there's not going to be an end to this. It is worth noting that General Cavoli, the Supreme Allied Commander of Europe, testified 3 weeks ago in front of the U.S. Congress that Ukraine is actually winning this war on the battlefield. Ukrainians know that. The Russians know that. Apparently only the White House doesn't know that.
So it's not a great time for Ukraine to be thinking about giving up at this stage, I suppose, is the point. I mean, the threat that has gone hand in hand from the Trump administration is they'll walk away if they don't get what they want in the next few days. And that throws the ball right back into the hands of the Europeans in terms of what they will do and what they can do. Realistically, can Europe fill the gap that could potentially be created if America walks away?
I would say yes. The only thing that Europe is missing is self-confidence, actually. I mean, if you add together the economies, the populations, the militaries, the defense industry of all of Europe, including UK and Canada, it dwarfs Russia. I mean, Russia has not been able to defeat Ukraine after 11 years, despite every advantage. And frankly, unfortunately, the U.S. administration has stopped or significantly reduced delivering aid to Ukraine for 3 months now. A reduction in intelligence that's shared has been reduced. So I think at this point, Europe is going to need to step up for its own security and for its own interest to help fill that gap. But yes, short answer, yes, of course, Europe has the capability in most categories to fill that gap.